Hi guys, Brook Potter here. Firstly, I want to apologize that I haven't put out any videos recently. There have been a couple of weeks here where I've just been so under the weather with a very bad cough, bringing up some things that are undescribable. And I've just been unable to get to see a doctor to deal with that. I just kind of had to ride it out, and it went on for almost a month. But yeah, I wanted to get back to sharing a lot of these stories about my adventures out here in the UK. Since my last video, there have been quite a few of them, so I'm really going to try and catch up on that as quickly as I can. So in this video, I want to talk about my day trip out to Milton Keyes with a very good friend of mine. I'm going to call her Olivia, who invited me out to Bletchley Park. Now, this was very exciting for me. For those who don't know, I'm a huge history buff, especially pertaining to the events of the Second World War. I've visited a number of these major sites throughout Europe, and I look forward to seeing a lot more. And this was the site of the World War II code-breaking facility that basically gave the Allied forces access to private communications amongst the Axis forces and allowed them to really curtail the length of the war. It is believed that the work at Bletchley Park reduced the length of the war by, at least 4 or 5 years or something along those lines. But I mean, this site is world famous. It's been, iconicized in many movies, including movies like The Imitation Game with Mr. Cumberbatch, as well as Enigma, which was a movie back in 2001. I believe Kate Winslet was in that as well. Yeah, it's a very popularized piece of iconic war history. And for me, it was just an absolute joy to finally go out and walk these halls that in many ways for me is like it's hallowed ground. So much has come out from the work that was done at Bletchley Park that has actually advanced much of the computer technology that we enjoy today. So if any of you are watching this on a smartphone or your laptop or however you're watching this, you can trace a lot of this back to the works of the like of Alan Turing and the Colossus machine that was built basically to determine the German ciphers in that time period. But getting ahead of myself, we got out there early morning after breakfast, my friend Olivia and myself, and we walked through the doors. We bought our ticket, which fantastically, if anybody's interested, it's good for the entire year. So I could probably go back and visit, and I probably will go back and visit because there's so much to see at this facility. And they even gave me a tax credit, so that's going to show up on my taxes, I guess, as some kind of historical donation or something along those lines. And so we got into it, and there are so many of these exhibits. They have captured machines, Enigma and encoding machines, many of the weather books. For anybody who knows, the capturing of the weather books from the German U-boats and elsewhere was really pivotal in trying to crack the early editions of the Enigma machine. And again, if anybody doesn't know, the Enigma machine was this amazing mechanical encryption device that comprised of a keyboard, a number of rotors, as well as a plug board and a light board to the front. And the setup was such that, every time you configured it a different way and you pressed a particular key, once you press that key, the configuration of the machine would change and thereby encrypt the key in a completely different way, offering millions and millions of possible combinations to the encryption. And, again, seeing how they did this in a time before the technology, just using logic and reason and, deciphering techniques and their cribs and other things, it's just a wonderment to see how they've done this. And so we got into the park and we were introduced to a fantastic short film about, the need for people to actually get intelligence and the need for these people to go out and break the Enigma code, the German Enigma code. It was done in partnership early on with the Polish people who actually got their hands on an Enigma code very early on by mistake. The Germans had sent it off to the wrong address, and Polish intelligence was alerted. They kind of got into it, and they gave, expecting a possible invasion from Germany, they gave this information to the British as well as the French. And a lot of that actually was used to develop the first ways to crack the early renditions of the Enigma code. I believe the first rendition was probably called Dolphin. Later, it was upgraded from 3 rotors to 4, mostly for the U-boats and elsewhere. So the land units were using 3 rotors. The fleet of the Nazi fleets were using 4 rotors, and I believe they called that Shark at the time, which was a higher level of encryption. And just the systematic breakdown of how they did this entire thing, from the Y stations that were set up to intercept the location of these different signals. So these were the listening stations. They can triangulate where a particular signal was coming from. So for instance, if it was coming consistently from the mid-Atlantic, for instance, that could be a weather station. If a signal was coming from Berlin, it was probably a high priority and that was given more attention. And these guys worked out a fantastic system of prioritizing what signals should come from where, which ones should be given attention to. And, the weather stations and so forth was a very big part of how this was originally cracked. Seeing as many of these weather reports would usually start with the same phrasing, and they can go back and match these phrasings to try and, work out a crib of combinations as to what the settings might be for the day. There was another error within the Enigma code in such that no matter what button you pressed on the keyboard, you will never get that same letter as an output to the code. So they were able to take German words like weather, for instance. I mean, I don't know what the word is in German, but they'd take the word weather and they would line it up against the signal that they got to make sure that none of the letters would correspond, and they'd find an area where potentially there was no correspondence with the letters. This could potentially be the word weather encoded with the Enigma machine, and they would start to work backwards from there. Now, anybody who knows the story, there are very many variations to this. Eventually, there was not only the 3 rotor and the 4 rotor, but then there was also the Lorenz, which was this massive encoding machine that sent out messages from probably Hitler himself and the high command. This was an even more complicated machine. The Japanese codes were also cracked at this location. And, Alan Turing, as well as the work of, I can't remember the mechanical engineer, they set out to build a mechanical machine that would, run through as many of these possible combinations as possible. And this was run by the Wrens, which was the female naval officers out there. They would have to go and tune the machine and wire it up properly every day and let it run. And for anybody who knows, again, this was very important because the codes would change every 24 hours. So they only had a 24-hour window to get the cipher code for the day before they could decrypt any of these messages. So this was something that was running around the clock, and apparently it was very loud, very clunky. Sometimes it would stop for no reason, require tuning. There were lots of little parts that had to be adjusted and stuff like that. It was just, there was a lot of work to it. And while I was out there at the facility, they actually had a preservation society had rebuilt a portion of the bomb, of actually the machine that was used to break a lot of these ciphers and help them collect what would be the crib code and the cipher codes for the Enigma machines. And it was great. The guy explained it. He did a 20-minute presentation on how it was done, ran the machine for a while. You could go around the back and take a look at all of the complexity of the wiring. And again, this was a mathematical, mechanical, electrical machine. It wasn't using processes. It wasn't using the vacuum tube technology that came later with eventually the Colossus machine that was also used to, this was the first electronic programmable machine used to crack a lot of these codes. And, I'm sorry to hear that, not that long ago, the council was actually willing to give up the entire site, hand it over to a developer, and, they're going to put up condos and stuff like that. But thankfully, it is a very successful attraction at this point, and anybody who's interested in this kind of thing, I encourage you to go out there and support, preserving this piece of amazing history. And just kind of on a few closing notes, when I was out there, there's so much to see, all the different bunkers. Alan Turing's office is, kind of preserved as it was. They showed you the secret entrances where the messages would come in. But for me, there was this fantastic moment where my friend Olivia and myself are walking up to the main mansion building. And this is just something that I do. I have pictures of me doing this basically all around the world. I just went up and I put my hand on the archway to the mansion, and I just thinking about all of the history and all of the things that have been transformed by the work and the amazing men and women that have passed through this facility. that really transformed the world. I just put my hand on that building, and for a moment, you know, I just felt connected to like so much of that history and so much that we take for granted today. I just really felt it was almost like a spiritual something. But it was fantastic. I mean, just walking up to the building, they had the speakers with the sounds of the Spitfires that must have been flying over at the time. And I mean, they really did a good job to try and give you a sense of what it was like. And the exhibits out there, apart from, you know, the physical machines, they had fantastic videos and testimonies of life, what it was like there, especially during the summer when it was particularly hot, and you know, even how romantic relationships worked out at the facility. It was really, really something. And to the back, there was a garage with some lovely timepiece vehicles from the time period, you know, just all kept there. And it also really highlighted the role that women played, especially the female Navy officers, in operating the machines and you know, doing the ferrying of the telegraphs and so forth. It was just all around a fantastic experience, and I know for me, I'm going to be going back quite often when I have the time. It's just such an important part of recent history. But overall, it was an amazing experience. My friend Olivia and myself, this is a place that she loves dearly, and I have a tremendous appreciation for. I thank her tremendously for exposing me and taking me out there and giving me that experience. I think it was fantastic. And I encourage all of you, if you're into history and you're into, you know, things like, you know, the history of computers and where a lot of that stuff came from, it's amazing to go out there and see what they did before the advent of the technology we have today, and they were able to beat a machine that had, you know, millions and millions and millions of possible permutations. And just by thinking about it, using logic and reason, they were able to transform it. And it was the best kept secret of the war. So much so that right up until the 1980s, the Germans and even the Russians didn't believe that the cipher of the Enigma machine was actually broken. Unfortunately, when the facility was done, you know, Churchill just asked that everything be destroyed. There's not a lot of there's so much that we don't know about the ciphers, the messages and stuff like that. But, you know, fortunately, there's a movement to preserve it right now. And even to this day, you know, the code breaking division, they still go out to many schools and stuff like that with Enigma machines, and they ask the kids to type messages with like an actual Enigma machine, and the coding facilities actually that still have the bombs running and stuff like that go about to try and break it. And so far they've broken, I think, 17 out of 17 messages that they've received. So it's a fantastic piece of history. If that's something that you're into, I would encourage everybody to go out there and to see it at least once in your life, because we wouldn't be living in the world that we have now. You know, as many problems as we have, a lot of it is due in large part, a lot of the freedoms and the liberties we have is based on the work that happened at this facility. And I, for one, just think it was amazing to see it for myself and actually walk those halls and hear the stories of the people that work there. And on a quick final note, there's actually a registry out there where you could punch your name in to see if by chance maybe some of your family may have actually worked out there. I, for one, there's an odd Potter that worked there. It was J.A. Potter that was part of the RAF, the Royal Air Force. My great-grandfather is a J.A. Potter. And I don't know if it's the same guy. It would be pretty cool if it is, but I'm not sure. Somebody told me I should write them to get more details and stuff like that, but it's not important. I just thought it was pretty cool. So again, guys, I just wanted to share this quick story about my time out to Bletchley Park. I've been doing a lot of trips recently. I've been out to Glastonbury a couple times, Newcastle, Liverpool, even to Northern Ireland. I'm going to be doing videos about all of that, as well as continuing my series about some political commentary, as well as, you know, some lifestyle videos that I'll be sharing as well. So guys, this is my video. I thank you for watching. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.